without further ado, turn it over to Dave Piazza.
Okay, hi Frank. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me and thank you for coming. As Dave told you, Westcott has been around for a long time. The present owner is actually the third generation. He talks about his grandmother all the time, Grandma Haas. Our umbrella division is called Haas Jordan. And now we make mainly golf umbrellas. That's our business on that side of it. But our photo side has been kind of reinvented itself in the late 80s where we had the Apollo. And we're known as an innovative lighting company. We're all about lighting. That's what we do. That's all we do is lighting. And today's seminar is called The Power of Portable Flash. And it's really not going to be product-centric. In fact, I didn't bring a whole bunch of product. I brought one set of light modifiers, our latest one, and I'm going to show you how to use that. But we're going to talk about portable electronic flash first of all, build up to it so you understand exactly what how it works and the good parts and bad parts of it. If you have any questions, feel free to answer questions. This is going to be, we don't have a huge group here, and we can have a little give and take here. Our model's coming in, and we're just going to do a few shots of her. I'm going to show you a really basic setup that all of you can do pretty easily. First of all, I'm going to assume you all own a portable electronic flash. Mm-hmm. You all own at least one of these guys, right? Everybody here know how to use this thing really well, right? No, it's kind of hard to use, isn't it? We all have digital SLRs, mm-hmm. Canon, Nikon, anything besides a Canon or Nikon. One Sony. Olympus. One Olympus. Which one? Fuji. A Fuji, which is really a Nikon, isn't it?
No, it's Canon, I think.
Is it Canon? They used to be Nikon. Now it's probably Canon.
Canon stuff's like that.
Okay, so all the rest of your Nikon and Canon. I'm going to tell you what I'm not going to go over today. I am not going to go over how to work these cameras wirelessly with your camera system. The reason I'm not is because it's so product dependent. In other words, if you own a Nikon, I start talking about how the Canons work wirelessly with infrared, all the Nikon people are going to be left out in the cold. It's just everything is a little bit different, and especially with a camera like Canon, it's different for cameras. And a lot of the Canon cameras do not work wirelessly inherently in the camera. Okay? Has anybody here tried to do it wirelessly and had good luck? No, not many, huh? So what I'm going to use today is and in fact, let's get down to the basics here. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then we're going to build up and go over how flash works and how we can make it look better. I am going to work this wirelessly, but I'm going to use a radio slave. It's simple, very simple to use a radio slave. That's not product dependent. I happen to be using Pocket Wizards today. There are many other brands out there, and the guys down at B&H can certainly help you with a wireless radio device. Wireless radio devices are becoming very popular because they work very well. They're something you can depend on. That's one thing that Canon did recently with their 5D Mark III. Anybody here on a 5D Mark III? Okay. Well, 5D Mark III is a very popular camera. They came out with a whole new flash system called the 600 something or other, 600 flash, and that is the first portable electronic flash that's got a radio slave built into it, proprietary to Canon, of course. So, electronic flash. Basically, when we talk about lighting, there are realistically only two types of light that you can use in photography: electronic flash and continuous light. Almost all of you, I would assume, know how to use continuous light if you shoot outdoors. Pretty simple. Continuous light comes in many different forms. I love continuous light. I usually use continuous light in most of my portraiture work. And a portable electronic flash is the type of light I would typically never use for portraiture. Why? Well, a lot of it has to do with my style. And probably the most important thing I can get across to you today is that there is no right or wrong. There is no best. There is no worst. There's differences in how you want to accomplish what you want to accomplish. In photography, there's always choices being made. We're always making choices, and then there's always a trade-off. Every time we make one decision, and to gain something in photography, we're giving something else up. That's the way it is. For the easiest example I can give you is if you're outdoors shooting and you want to stop some action, you go to a fast shutter speed, you're giving up depth of field, right? To accomplish that fast shutter speed, you have to go to a more wide open aperture. Or now with digital cameras, you can go to a higher ISO. Same token, when you go to a higher ISO, there comes a point that you're giving something up, which is usually graininess and noise. So you're always giving something up. So when I approach what I'm trying to accomplish, I start backwards. In other words, I may have a photograph in my mind that I want to accomplish. I'm a portrait photographer. I love doing portraits. So I have a style in mind, or a end result, and I have my conditions also in my mind. Am I working in a studio, or am I working in someone's home? Am I working, again, indoors, or am I working outdoors? They bring me different choices. If I'm working in a studio in a controlled condition that I've got complete control for portraiture, I'm using continuous light. It's my favorite light source to use inside. When I'm outdoors doing a portrait, a continuous light is almost impossible to use. I'm talking about besides the sun. I always want to have some kind of supplement to the sun. So portable electronic flash is excellent for any time you need to be mobile. That's where its greatest strength is. If I am going from one location to the next, the attraction is with portable electronic flash because it's so easy to pack up and move around. I mean, I brought my equipment today, and my light modifiers are here. This is it. And I bring a couple light stands, a few light stands, and of course my flashes fit in this. I can fit my whole setup in a relatively small case, unlike continuous light where I'm bringing a lot of items. What's the downside to using electronic flash, or in particular portable electronic flash? The biggest downside is that you can't see the light. It's a huge issue too, guys. I'm sure you've realized all this, is when you're trying to take a portrait, you don't know what it's going to look like until after you shoot a picture. So you're doing a lot of pre-visualization, or you're doing a lot of trial and error. And trial and error is really not much of a problem, although it sometimes gets a little annoying. So I'm going to try and get you to get there closer, quicker. Now let's talk about specifically portable electronic flash and how it works. Electronic flash generally works the same way no matter what kind of form it is. Either a studio strobe or a monolight or a portable electronic flash or a built-in flash in your camera. It's a very fast, bright flash of light. One of the qualities of, it's not a good quality, but it is a quality of electronic flash, is it's probably the harshest light that is in existence that we can possibly use. It's much harsher than the sun. Harsher than the sun, I wouldn't say much harsher, but it is harsher than the sun. It's much harsher than continuous light, especially something like daylight fluorescent or LEDs. And so we have to work a little bit harder to modify it and make it palatable. The biggest difference between a portable electronic flash and a studio strobe is simply power and how you can attach light modifiers to it. It's always been difficult to attach light modifiers to a portable electronic flash because there's nothing really to attach anything to it. It's its own separate piece. How many people here have used a studio strobe ever? Only a few, about half of you maybe. Well, a studio strobe, those typically take a ring, and it is a piece of metal that bayonets onto the front of the light, and then you can attach a lot of different light modifiers to it. It's relatively easy to put a light modifier onto a studio strobe. And when I say a light modifier, I'm talking any device that changes the property of a light. Softbox. Umbrellas are pretty easy to put on just about everything. This, you can't attach a ring to it. There's no such thing. You can't inherently attach an umbrella to it. It's just the way it is. A studio strobe, they all have umbrella shaft holes. This one, you have to have something else to attach it to it. So in the simplest level, we have a device like this. Nice, simple umbrella tilter bracket. This part goes on top of any light stand. It just goes right on, it's a standard size. This has got a shoe on there, and the shoe is adjustable. And you can lock it in. You see, you got to be very careful though, and how you lock it. When you guys buy these flashes, I think you understand, you probably spend about $500 on this flash. And there's nothing worse than thinking you're attached properly, and you're outside, and it starts tumbling off onto the concrete. Your heart goes in your throat. I've done it more than once. I haven't wrecked a flash yet. There will be a day that I will. See, I'm having a hard time even getting this. And I make it nice and loose. Oh, it's because I had it locked. Let me unlock it. You notice I did not set anything up because I wanted to show you exactly what it's like to set this stuff up and how we deal with problems. There will be at least one problem or two problems today when I'm setting things up. Nice and tight. There's a lock on it. That's pretty tight. Now, when I put this on a light stand, pretty simple. Step number one, you got to have the flash, you have some way to hold it. This is the easiest way to hold it. If you're trying to do is everybody here trying to do portraiture? Is portraiture probably the number one? Anything besides portraiture that people want to try and learn how to use a portable electronic flash for? What?
Groups of people.
That's the same thing. That's portraiture. Macro work. That's portraiture. I'm sorry?
It's portraiture, yes.
Macro work.
Yes.
Close in on an inanimate object.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as going close in on someone's face. It's a form, I can use the same techniques with portraiture as I do with macro work. Okay? They're all pretty similar. You know, when I talk about portraiture and you have a different type of subject you're thinking of, well, you just put it into that kind of scale. That's really all it is. Yes, when you take a portrait as a photograph of a human being, it's not much different from taking a portrait of a watermelon, as far as I'm concerned. Fruit, it doesn't matter. The techniques are very, very similar. One of the biggest quality problems that we have is that if we use a portable electronic flash the way it is intended to be used, which is on top of your camera, that is the worst possible place to have the flash. So step number one, if you're trying to improve your flash photography, your portable electronic flash photography, you have to get the flash off the camera. Period. There's no way around this, guys. I do have, for your information, some light modifiers that will help your quality if you have to keep the flash on the camera. This happens to be our pocket box. It is a series of 3 soft boxes. We have a round one that's about 8.5 inches, a square one that I think is, 7, 8 inches, and 8 by 12. All of these work similarly, where they got a little band on it, and you put it on a flash, and you take this and you wrap it around and make it tight. And there you go. So there is a way to put a light modifier on a flash when it's on top of your camera. Now, why do we use a light modifier like this? The biggest problem with electronic flash is its harshness. And when I say harshness, I'm saying it's specular. Specular is another word for contrast. You have seen photographs like these all the time. You take a flash picture with the flash on top of your camera. You have no light modification on it. You take the picture of a human's face. Their face reflects the light greatly. Their face gets washed out. The background goes dark. That's a contrasty picture, very, very specular. The way to make light softer is to make it bigger. The bigger you make a light source, the softer it gets. This will make that small portable electronic flash bigger. It still does not take care of our problem with the position of the light. If I have this on top of my camera, I still have the light in the worst possible place to take a portrait. So My number one suggestion to you is get a light stand, get some kind of adapter, and get that flash off the camera, your position. Whatever your camera position is, you want the flash away from it. Now, I use these when I have to, and here when you come down to choices. Someone will ask me, well, when I use something like this, when would I use this round one instead of this rectangular one? And these are some of the issues that are involved. Believe it or not, we invented these and we offer them in one package for one major reason. This one produces a round catch light in the eye, and this one produces a rectangular catch light in the eye. That's how serious a lot of photographers get. With so much portable electronic flash being used outdoors, the accepted practice is that if you are outdoors, you want a round catch light in the eye because it duplicates what the sun does. That's the thinking. I personally, I really don't care that much, but some people are very, very particular about it. When you're indoors, it's more accepted to have a rectangular or square catch light in the eye because that duplicates what a window would do. That's the fact. So that's why we've got those two. We have bigger ones and smaller ones because of the different size. Now, if you're saying, well, I'm in a situation that I have to keep the flash on the camera. I'm doing running and gunning. Well, here's one of the choices you have to make. If I'm in a situation where I have to be completely mobile, an event is going on, a wedding, a party, whatever event you're trying to photograph, you're a news photographer, for example, where you don't have the time or certainly the room to set up a flash off your camera, well, it only makes sense that the best way to do it is to keep your flash on the camera. If that's your only resort, that's your resort. And then something like this is actually going to mitigate it and make it a little bit better. So that's a choice you have to make. I still try and get the flash off the camera as much as I can. I know many wedding photographers that when they shoot a reception room, they have 2 or 3 flashes that they set up in various parts of the room. They may put light modification, they may not. They may put something like this on it. They'll put on a light stand way in the corner and point it down. They'll have a radio slave attached to it. And so they've got some light that they can depend on. They know where it is, and they can use it as they're doing, let's say, a picture of the dance. That gets a little bit advanced, and some of these photographers will use the wireless system that is involved with their camera. That's one of the reasons that the Mark III is very popular with these photographers right now, professional photographers that shoot weddings, because in their camera, or if they don't have a 5D Mark III, Canon sells a controller that fits on top of your hot shoe on your camera, and you can control various flashes. You can change what their power is, which ones you use. So you can have, okay, that corner I've got group A, that corner I've got group B, and over here I've got group C. And so if something is going on, you quickly decide which flash to use. So that's the kind of work a lot of these guys go through. So step number 1, get it off the camera. Now, let's talk a little bit about how flash actually works and some of the pitfalls of it, and I am going to teach you how to use a flash and camera in manual. How many of you, when you use a portable electronic flash, use your flash in manual? That's excellent to hear. That's excellent to see. The rest of you, I would assume, using ETTL? Yes? No? Maybe? What are you doing? Manual. Manual control, I think, is the best, and this is why. ETTL control is certainly it works. There's no doubt that the camera companies have got the system pretty well designed, where typically when you're using full ETTL, and let's say you've got the flash attached to your camera, there's a connection being made between the two of them. There's many pins on the bottom of this flash. There's many pins on the top of your camera, and they communicate. And what happens is the flash flashes before it actually shoots a picture. It's a pre-flash. It flashes, it hits whatever subject is out there, it bounces off, it comes back, goes through the lens, the computer sees it, it does a computer calculation, and depending on how much automation you want, it'll set everything, if you will want it to, ISO, shutter speed, aperture, power of flash. If you take your camera off of any of the automatic settings, it'll compensate for that. For example, if you want to set the aperture yourself, then fine. The camera knows I want f5.6. It's going to control the power of the flash to accomplish f5.6. So it works fairly well in that respect that it has automation. It can read that amount of light being hit off of the subject. Here's the problem. It's still what the computer wants, not what you necessarily want. So it's limited to sometimes to a certain extent. It depends on your conditions. If you're in a very large room and you have a subject right in front of you, it's going to be thrown off. The light's going to hit it, but it's also going to try and expose for the background too. So sometimes it gets confused and you get results that you're not expecting. If you use manual control, which I'm going to do today, and all manual control means is that I'm setting the power on the flash and I'm choosing the aperture that I want to use. So if I take a photograph and I look at my LCD very quickly, I can make an adjustment very quickly with exposure. So let's go over the different adjustments you have and how exposure actually works with a portable electronic flash. Now, we already know that your camera exposure, when you're in continuous light, uses shutter speed and aperture. The combination of those two will give you a proper exposure. And if you change your shutter speed and aperture in conjunction, you can actually have the same amount of light going through, the same exposure, but you have a different combination of the two of them. In other words, a 500th of a second at f2.8 is the same exposure at 4/250th, which is the same as at 5.6 1/25th. You all get that, right? Very important to understand that whole relationship between the two of them. As you change your shutter speed, you're allowing the chip to be exposed to light varying amounts of time, and the aperture changes an opening that regulates how much light actually hits the film or chip also. We make that choice depending usually on what kind of depth of field we want. Well, in electronic flash, part of that is thrown out the window because your shutter speed, for all intents and purposes, is designed to do one thing and one thing only when you're using electronic flash, and that's to synchronize the shutter with the operation of the flash. Have any of you been in manual control with any flash and set it incorrectly and gotten half a picture? I have. It's relatively easy to do, and let's go through it from the old time. I'm going to show a little old school. When I was a kid and I got my first camera in 1967, I used my first electronic flash around 69, and at that time, all the film cameras were syncing at a 60th of a second. That's what the manufacturer told you to do. If you set your camera 1/25th of a second, you would get half a picture. And this is why. And this is a great misconception to a lot of people, is they think that a shutter opens and closes. A shutter in a digital SLR does not open and close. There are some shutters that open and close, and those are called leaf shutters. A leaf shutter is a shutter that's located inside the lens. And you see that on very inexpensive cameras, point and shoot cameras, and you see it on very expensive cameras like Hasselblad's, some Amiya's, view cameras. So when they have a shutter inside the camera, it's a leaf shutter. They call it a leaf shutter because it looks a lot like an aperture. There's several leaves. It's circular. It gets smaller, or pardon me, it's able to close, and that opens and closes. That's how it works. There's no sync speed with a leaf shutter. Electronic flash will sync at every speed because when it's open, and the flash can fire. In an SLR, there are actually two curtains in your shutter. In the cameras I'm speaking about, in the 60s and 70s and so on, that synced at a 60th of a second, they're horizontally traveling focal plane shutter. Horizontally traveling focal plane shutter means it was near the film. That was the big change that SLRs brought to cameras, is that they took the shutter out of the lens and put it in the camera. It brought down the prices of lenses. That's why we're able to do photography the way we are right now, because we have one shutter instead of a shutter for every single lens. Two curtains, curtain A and curtain B. They're cocked, they go to one side. To start the exposure, curtain A goes across the film plane. You finish the exposure, curtain B goes across. Cocks the shutter, they go back. That's the action. A 60th of a second at that time was the fastest shutter speed you can have, where when curtain B or curtain A was all the way across the film plane, curtain B has not started to travel across. So at 1/25th of a second, this is what happens. Curtain A starts going across the film plane. When it's halfway across, curtain B follows it. They run parallel for 1/250th of a second, like this. When curtain A is open all the way, flash fires, curtain B is halfway across the film plane, blocking it, you get a half a picture. If you shoot a camera that syncs at a 60th of a second, and 1/25th, you get a half a picture. You shoot at 2/50th, you get a quarter of a picture. You shoot at 500th, you get an eighth of a picture, and right on down the line. Still today, when you have a very, very fast shutter speed, you are really exposing a slit of light across the film plane. It's amazing how it works, just like that. In 1969, the first camera that moved the sync speed to 1/125th of a second was Nikon with the Nikomat. You know how they did it? They went vertically traveling. I swear to God. It's simple stuff. There's nothing special or magical about it. Less distance to travel, and I gave you 1/25th of a sync speed. Almost all your cameras use a 200th. Am I correct? Everybody know what their sync speed is? If you don't know what your sync speed is, you have to know it. And you know it by going in your instruction booklet and finding out what it is. Most of them are 200th of a second for two reasons. Number one, the chip is smaller. It's smaller than a piece of film, and they're vertically traveling. If you have a full frame digital SLR like a 5D Mark III or a D800, they still sync at a fast shutter speed, mainly because the shutter mechanism itself is made out of titanium, it's very expensive, and it moves faster. So that's how it works. So ostensibly, our shutter speed is there just to control the operation of the flash with the operation of the shutter. They have to be in complete synchronization, mainly because the flash is firing at about a 2,000th to a 4 or 5,000th of a second, very fast. So, exposure really is not affected that much by shutter speed when you're using electronic flash. All of your exposure is in the aperture. There are about 4 ways to change your exposure. Let's go over that so we understand how your exposure is affected. Your exposure when you use electronic flash is affected by several factors. Number one, what ISO you're shooting at. That's common sense. Number two, what aperture you're using. Number three, what power the flash is set at. And number four, how far away the flash is from your subject. And I'm not going to get into the squared rule, but as you move the flash away, you exponentially lose power. So when I am setting up for a photograph and a portrait, I choose my position not because of exposure. I choose my position depending on what I want to try and accomplish. And typically, if I'm shooting a portrait, what the item that changes as I move the flash away from the camera is coverage. In other words, if I've got this right on top of you, and you've got a very small light source, and it's coming out about like that, I might be covering his face. It's going to be very harsh, too. As I move it further away, it makes sense that it's going to cover a larger area. Now here's the trick, and here's the insidious part about it. What makes light softer is the size of the light. The size of the light is controlled by two things. How big the actual light source is, and once I put in a light modifier, the light modifier becomes my light source. So if I reflect this into a 40-inch umbrella, the 40-inch umbrella is my light source. But it's also controlled by how far away it is from the subject. So a light in close is softer, believe it or not, because a light in close is larger in relation to my subject. If I have two light sources of the same size, and I bring one further away, this is bigger to you because it's right in front of your face. So a light source further away gets harsher because it gets smaller. That is one of the main reasons that we have different sized light modifiers. We make a light modifier for studio strobe that is 7 foot round. We have a 7-foot octabank. We have a 7-foot parabolic umbrella, 7 feet. Fashion photographers love these light modifiers because if they're shooting a model full length, and maybe even more than full length, they can keep that light modifier at a relatively close distance to their subject, but still maintain coverage. So that's why we have different size light modifiers. So when I'm shooting a portrait, which I'm going to be doing today of Ricky, hi Rick, she looks great. I'm going to determine how far away I am and how much I want to cover, and that's where I'm going to put the light. Now, then I can start working with my exposure. The first thing I do is I choose my ISO even before I even start. And from experience, I like to use 200 ISO with a portable electronic flash. The reason I use 200 ISO with a portable electronic flash, it seems to give me the most amount of leeway either way. When I shoot a portrait, I do not necessarily want to have, I hardly ever want to shoot at f8. I'll accept 5.6, I'd rather have f4. With flash, I'm usually right around f5.6. The reason I don't want a great depth of field is because depth of field will start bringing my background into focus, and I don't really need that. My style is that I want to have the eyes in focus, and I really don't care about anything else. So I want that focus really in one spot. So I've already chose my ISO. My shutter speed is pre-selected for me because it's my sync speed. And just for information's sake, I never set my camera at the manufacturer's suggested sync speed. I always go a little bit slower. If the camera manufacturer suggests 200th of a second, I shoot at 1/125th. Why? Just in case that shutter lags a little bit, and shutters are known to lag. If your sync speed is 200th and you set your camera at 200th and it lags just a fraction of a second, you will get a fuzzy side on your image. So to make sure, if there's any lag, 1/25th. It's giving me plenty of time to make sure that everything works properly. So I'm on 1/25th. I pre-select f5.6. I'm at 200 ISO. The only variable, and I already selected the distance away from my subject because of coverage, the only variable at that point is the power on the flash. It's pretty simple. And I know from experience, I'm already going to tell you when I'm going to set this at. I'm going to set this at 1/16th power. And it's going to come out pretty darn close the first time. Now, if it didn't, and let's say I moved my flash or I have a different look I want to get, I'm doing a full length or whatever, I will probably start at the same starting point. I'll set up my flash, put my light modifier on it, I'll make my settings, I'll take a quick test picture. And then, if I'm manual control, then I can make those changes and I know exactly what's going to happen as I change them. I have choices of what I want to change. Usually, I will change one or another item. I'll either change the aperture or the power on the flash. It depends on the situation, it depends what I'm trying to accomplish, it depends on how much of a hurry I'm in, it depends on where the flash is located. If it's at a position that it might be hard to get to, I don't want to change my camera position, I just change my aperture a little bit. If it's underexposed, I know to open up a little bit. If it's overexposed, I'll close down a little bit. And these are quick decisions you can make pretty easily. So there's the basics. Electronic flash flashes very quickly. Your shutter speed is really designed just to control the synchronization between the flash and the camera. All of your exposure control is mainly in the aperture, with the other caveats that distance and power of the flash and ISO speed will control exposure too. Now, before we go any further, I must tell you that the shutter speed not having an effect on exposure only goes so far. It certainly will affect exposure depending on your conditions. In fact, I can illustrate that today. And here's the general rule I can give you, and I think I can explain it a little bit later, and I'll actually show you when I start shooting some pictures. The rule is this. And I'm not a big rule guy, but this is just a fact. It's really, when I say it's a rule, this is a fact. And the fact is that your aperture controls the exposure of the light coming out of your flash. Your shutter speed will control the exposure for the ambient light conditions. Now the reason that most of the time, and I'm saying most of the time, I'm saying in just about every single studio picture you would shoot, or in other words, a picture indoors, is your shutter speed has no effect on the exposure because I'm at 1/25th of a second. I'm going to be at f5.6. I'm at 200 ISO. There's got to be a lot of light present for that amount of ambient light to actually show an exposure. Okay? If you're in a bright outside, that's a different story. All of a sudden it will come into effect. So using a portable electronic flash outdoors is a slightly different exposure calculation. But I'm going to throw out this little technique, and I can probably show you too, because this is a really great technique, especially when you're running into the instance where the background is too dark. We see this a lot, where you take a flash picture, it kind of blows out the face a little bit if you don't have any light modifier on it, or it may be exposed well, and the background's very dark. Let's say you're outdoors and it's near dusk, and it's a beautiful sky in the background, and you want to fill in the face with that flash light. If you don't use the flash, it's going to look dull. So you know enough that, oh, I'm near dusk, I'm taking a portrait outdoors, I want to put some flash on that person's face. And if you expose well for the face, the background is just gone. Your beautiful, colorful sky is all dark. It's very simple to correct that. When you have your camera, if you've chosen your your aperture and the distance of your light and your ISO, let's say you've chosen 5.6. Okay, 5.6, 200 ISO, 1/25th of a second, you shoot a picture, the flash fires, the subject is perfectly exposed, the background's really dark. All you do is go to a slower shutter speed, take a picture, another slower shutter speed, take a picture. Eventually you're going to get to that shutter speed where that background's going to come out. Typically, 30th of a second, 15th of a second. So what? You're not going to have much of a trouble with sharpness, because you got to remember your subject, you press the button, flash fires, that's captured. And then the shutter's going to stay open a little bit longer to allow light to hit the chip and sink in. Now I can try that today. We're going to shoot a regular portrait of Ricky, and then what I'll probably do is maybe turn her around, we'll darken the room lights, and then we'll slowly show you the difference as we change the shutter speed. The trick with the shutter speed is as long as you go to slower speeds, you're not going to have a sync issue. Now, there's one more caveat I'm going to give you, because most of your cameras are now capable of doing what's called high-speed sync. These are advanced techniques. Now, high-speed sync allows you to use a faster shutter speed than your stated sync speed. In other words, I have used a Canon 600 flash with my 7D, and I shot it at 8,000th of a second. And the flash kept up with it. And it works. It doesn't change the science at all. The science of the shutter is still the same. When you are shooting at an 8,000th of a second, the curtain A and curtain B, they're vertically traveling. They are like right next to one another, barely exposing a slit of light as it goes through the exposure. You can't even conceive of how small the slit is. And how it works is the flash goes into a strobe mode, where I'm talking about a classic strobe where it flashes on and off, the kind that if you look at a strobe you get a little psychotic, that kind of thing. But it happens so quickly you can't even notice it. So it's strobing, and a little burst of light is coming out as it's going across the film plane. It's an astounding practice that the flash is doing. Now, some of the issues with when you go to high-speed sync, number one, you got to kind of know what you're doing. You got to be able to set it in a high-speed sync, and there's some exposure issues in terms of doing it correctly. Probably the biggest problem with it is that it will, if you use it too much, it could destroy your flash. Okay, flashes, as you flash them, they get hot. A flash will overheat. It will overheat relatively easily. If you pop flash after flash after flash after flash, all of a sudden it will stop working. It'll actually shut itself down. That's one of the reasons that I use 200 ISO and I like to work at 16th power or 8th power. I don't like to work at full power. Full power limits how many times I can flash. When I go to full power, it limits my recharge time. I can't take pictures as quickly. So your cameras are capable of high ISOs. I like to take advantage of that. Don't be afraid of using 400 ISO or 800 ISO if you're in a situation that the power of your flash has to be too great for what you want to use. In other words, if you're taking a picture of a big room and you're doing a picture of a large group, someone mentioned before a large group. Well, a large group means you have to have the light, even if you got a big light modifier, you have to have it set back far enough from your group so that if I'm shooting a group I couldn't even shoot a group like this from here. There's not enough room. I'd have to put the light about 10 feet back, and I'd have to have a couple of them, and I want them to light a really big area. And I also need to go back to the back of the group. It's kind of a tough lighting condition. In that instance, even at full power, if I'm at 200 ISO, I may be at f2.8. So then, if I'm at full power and I've got to take many pictures, that's a problem, and I don't want to be at f2.8. The solution is go to 400 ISO, go to 800 ISO. Every time you change it, you go from 200 to 400. Let's say your exposure at 200 ISO was f2.8. You go from 200 to 400, you're at f4. You go to 400 to 800, your exposure is at 5.6. All of a sudden, I picked up 2 stops just by going two greater ISOs. So don't be afraid to do an ISO either. Let's talk about one more technical issue that I think is important to understand because how electronic flashes are rated in terms of power is greatly confusing. Anybody that's ever shopped for or purchased a studio strobe has usually been thrown the spec of a watt second. You all heard of a watt second? The watt second ostensibly is there to tell you how much power this particular studio strobe contains. In theory, if you have a 200 watt second unit and a 400 watt second unit, at full power, the 400 watt second unit should have twice the amount of power as the 200 watt second unit. So if I set that 400 watt second unit up and I put it in A position with the same modifier on it, and I shoot a picture at full power, and let's say I'm at f8, if I put the 200 watt second unit in the exact same position at full power, I will get f5.6, 1 f-stop difference. If you have a 400 watt second unit and you put it to half power, you should get 1 f-stop difference. That's in theory. The trouble with watt second is that it does not actually measure the output of the flash. It's really a problem. What it measures is how much power the capacitor inside the unit is capable of handling every time it recharges. It has nothing to do with what happens after the capacitor. In other words, what I'm telling you is a watt second is a very lousy, inaccurate way to measure the power of a flash. Some companies use it extremely well, and they're accurate and they're right on. Usually you find the more expensive a flash, the more accurate that reading is. Portable electronic flashes, thank God, use a different kind of measurement. It's called a guide number. Now the guide number, completely the opposite from a watt second. A guide number is an actual representation of the exposure you can expect out of your flash. The guide number, in fact, was invented, oh my word, probably 80, 90 years ago when flash bulbs were invented. How many of you guys are old enough to go with flash bulbs? I know you are. Come on, yeah, at least half of you, flash bulbs. You remember flash cubes? Flash cubes, that's a flash bulb. The very first flash bulb was put out in the 20s. It looked like an incandescent light bulb. They actually were glass.
Yeah, you got me.
Yeah, and then they finally went to plastic, and if you ever see, I love watching the old movies where they actually represent a gaggle of news photographers with bulbs, because they popped, they actually blew up. There's actually explosive material in the bulb. It's the same material that they used with flash powder back in the 1800s when they used to, it was called flash powder, I think. I can't remember the name of the chemical.
Magnesium powder, isn't it?
What is it?
Isn't it magnesium powder?
magnesium, I think it might be magnesium nitrate or something, I'm not sure. There is a chemical that is in powder form, and they used to put it in a trough and they would blow it up, and that was your flash photography. The reason they used that is because the film at that time was so slow, they needed something that would burn a long time, and it did. It burned, I don't know, maybe a second or two. It made a big flash. Flash bulbs, they used the same material, but instead of powder form, it looks like a Brillo pad. You literally had an explosion in this thing. And you didn't have any regulation of power. Like this, I can go from full power down to, in 1/3 increments, down to 1/28 power. With flash bulbs, you had 1 power, and that was it. That's all you got. So they developed a guide number. And the guide number was to guide you along with exposure. And the guide number still lives today. All of your portable electronic flashes have a guide number. You look in the back of your book, it'll have a guide number, and it'll list different numbers depending on your film speed and if you're dealing with feet or meters. And it's dependent on that feet or meters. You'll get a number like this. Let's make a simple one. Let's say the guide number is 100 at 100 ISO film in feet. What that means is that if you have an unmodified flash bulb or portable electronic flash, whatever distance between your subject and your flash, in feet, you divide that into the guide number, and your resulting number is your f-stop. So if you have a guide number of 100, and you're 10 feet away, 10 into 100 is 10. Your aperture is f10, a little bit more wide open than f11. I shot my first wedding in, I'm showing my age, folks, 1977. 1977. I was 22 years old. I had a manual flash, and every exposure with that flash, I had to calculate my aperture. Thank God they gave me a little chart on the back of the flash. So I had to guesstimate my distance and quickly set the aperture. So a guide number is a very important measuring tool. And this is not even in theory, this is in fact. If I know what the guide number of this is, and I'm sorry, I do not know what it is. And if I set it up like this, and I take a measuring tape, and I measure, have it on full power, I do the math, I can set my exposure right on the money. Now, getting back to where this all came up, and your question, if I put a light modifier on it, well, it changes the calculation. Typically, depending what the light modifier is, you usually lose about a stop. Maybe 3/4 of a stop, maybe a stop and a quarter. And all of those changes are dependent on many different factors. How big the light modifier is, how thick the diffusion is, and so on and so forth. So luckily we don't have to do a lot of that calculation anymore, because I think most of us would not do photography if we did. But that is a story about that. And I think it's important to understand these basics so you get a little understanding of how all this stuff works. There's a reason that we have all these things. Exposures just don't come out of the air. They're not magic. There's nothing magic in photography, I don't think. I mean, the imagery is the magic part, but all the other stuff is just really mundane. It's geometry, it's physics, and it's math, because that's the way it is. Light is very predictable in what it does. Light travels in straight lines. You can measure, you can do a mathematical calculation, and you know exactly what the fall off of intensity is going to be in light depending on the distance, as long as it's going just through air. The only thing that screws that up is water. I know that if I point a light source at a solid surface, I know for a fact that if the light hits it at whatever angle, it's going to come off at the same angle. I know it. I'm sure a lot of you have tried to do bounce photography, where you've got a ceiling, and if you're not careful, you have to look and see what the angle is. You can very easily bounce the flash behind your subject. This is all simple stuff, math, geometry. I hate to tell you that, but that's what it is. So, with all that said, let's start setting up some pictures. I'm going to get Ricky out here. I'm going to first start out with a lousy picture, and I want to make it better and better and better. So, and I purposely did not set anything up because I want to show you exactly how these things go together, how relatively easy I think it is. So First thing I'm going to do is get the stool out so Ricky can make herself comfortable. And we're going to shoot right in the middle of the room. Let me put this down. How you doing? Good to see you.
Hi.
That comfy? You know how to adjust that. Go and adjust it for yourself. Lay a little bit higher. You're tall. This is Erica, Ricky. We love Ricky. And the first decision I make is how far away from the wall. I didn't even set up a background. We're just going to use the wall. I think we're a little bit too close.
To the wall.
Or too far away, I'm sorry. Let's move it back. That's about right. Maybe a touch forward. I'm anticipating where my second light is going to be. Right about there. I want enough room. My second light is going to go behind the subject. I need enough room there. I don't want the subject too close to the wall because then shadows will be going on it. Certainly I can put a background light and wash out those shadows, but you know why? If all I gotta do is move up a little bit. So I have 2 flashes. I don't want to, if I hurt someone, I apologize in advance. And I'm going to start out by shooting a picture with a bare naked flash. The worst we can possibly do. I'm going to step right over doing one right on top of the camera because that is so awful. It's just not even worth looking at. Okay. Thank you, sir. I almost forgot about that. I'm shooting tethered, and I am very happy that I just got a Cam Ranger. I'm not sure if any of you guys have ever heard of this before. It's a wireless flash tethering system where the device is making its own Wi-Fi network, and I'm on it right now. And I start my app, and it is connected to the camera. It's just really awesome. So I want to show the image only. My pocket wizards. I am using a standard pocket wizard. When I say standard pocket wizard, this is designed just to trigger the flash. That's all this does. You do have, in many different companies, Pocket Wizard included, ETTL versions. That's a different type of radio slave. That ETTL version will actually talk to the flash and have exposure communication go between the two, the camera and the flash. I do not have that. This is what I call a stupid radio slave. All it does is one thing and one thing only: fire the flash in the proper synchronization. So what I do is I have a cord, a cable. You get a custom cable depending on what kind of flash you have. This one happens to use, they have a special cable just for 580EX2s. It's great. And so on the 580EX2, I have a sync connection, and it screws right in. So I know I'm going to be secure. It's not going to fall out. As long as you screw it in all the way. There we go. That's in. This is a transceiver, which means it can act as either a transmitter or a receiver. So this is being connected to a flash. I connect it to the part that says flash. I turn it on. I've got many channels here. I'm going to use channel 4. I have put Velcro on this myself. On the top of my flash, I've got a big piece of Velcro, and so there, I'm ready to rock and roll. My transmitter, I'm going to test it once I turn the flash on. And it works. Right now I'm at 1/32nd power. I'm going to change that. I'm going to change. I'm in manual control. I'm going to try a 16th power with no light modifier. That should work just fine. I'm going to put this on top of my camera. Let's see what it works out without turning any lights off at all. I don't know if it's too bright or not. One of the issues we have with portable electronic flash, if you're shooting in a studio or a darkened room and you don't have any lights on, there's no light coming out, sometimes your camera has a hard time autofocusing. You got a hard time seeing. So it's an issue. My settings, I am using a electronic flash preset for color. I find that's relatively accurate. 1/25th of a second, 200 ISO, f5.6. I'm going to keep it right there, and let's see what we come up with without doing anything special at all. That's out of focus. That's because I'm in manual focus. In fact, I'm in manual focus because the last time I did this, I was in a darkened room and the autofocus wouldn't work, so I had to go manual focus. It's bright enough now, autofocus should work. So let's see what we get. It's not bad. I mean, my exposure's pretty close. You can see guessed it, not bad. You can see there's a pretty heavy shadow behind. It's probably a very unartistic photograph. Yeah, it looks pretty good. A lot of the reason it does because Ricky looks pretty good. That always helps. If I put me in that, it wouldn't be so great. But this is I think, the least objectionable with an unmodified light source. Just for the heck of it, let's put on a light modifier. Where's my big one? Did I throw it way over there? There we go. I'm going to go right to the big guy. Now we're also going to see how much this will cut down exposure. It should cut it down some. And I got the issue with the actual pocket wizard. Just kind of hang it there. It should be all right. I don't like hanging things like that because it will fall and go away, but we got a lot of people here to catch it, so you see a problem. Let me know. And I'm wrapping this around nice and tight, hitting the Velcro. Getting the box squared off as good as I can. I'm not going to change anything. Exposure, nothing. Let's see what it does. Exposure is going to be cut down, like no doubt. A lot. Yeah, it looks like about a stop and a half. I lost at least a stop. So let's go to F4. This is the calculation. We're to F4. Nothing's changing. Pardon me. It helps. I'm going to have to up my power. It looks like it's probably cutting off about 2 stops. I'm going to go to 8th power. Did that not go? Not sure I'm still connected. There it is. You can see what we're getting here. First of all, you can see there's a gentler shadows. I am going to up my power again to 1/4 power. I make my file size a little bit smaller to make it quicker. There we go. It's okay. I mean, it's not very artistic, is it? You know, I've got a lot of things going wrong here. The pose is really awful. We'll fix that pose in a second. The position of the light is becoming a little bit more critical now, mainly because I've got a modifier on there. I got to lower it a little bit, bring it a teeny bit in front of her. I'm going to open it up a teeny bit more, 3.5, and not terrible. I mean, I think it certainly looks a lot better than the first one we shot. I mean, I've got some softness here. Yeah, I got a little specularity right there. It's not bad though. When we go back to our first shot, am I bringing it up? You can see it goes backwards. I'm still learning how to use this, folks, so you just got to bear with me just a moment. I know that it's putting them in this file, so let me come down over here. The very first one I shot was that guy. And then the last one I shot was this guy. I would say we have some pretty major differences here. So a simple light modifier is gonna, I mean, if you really want to run really, really lightweight, it's gonna work. It's not bad, but I've got a better solution. And what I really love to use is our rapid box. And I think, oh, I see, this is going into download mode. So I don't want to do that. Go to image only. Oh, I got to close it. Just close it. There we go. And this goes to image only. There we go. It doesn't scroll through them though. I'm learning, guys. Oh, I see. It's showing the contents of the card. Camera card, time and controls. I'll stick to image only. There we go. And there's our last shot. Go to image only so you can see it all. Now, I'll put the camera down for a second. I'm going to go right to our rapid box. And our rapid box is a wonderful light modifier. I didn't set it up because I want to show you exactly how it is set up. We have many different light modifiers that work well with a portable electronic flash. Like I told you before, a portable electronic flash was not my favorite light source, but this light modifier is changing my mind. I really like this thing. You can see it's very compact. I got a little bracket on there. I open it up, I push it in, and I got myself a light box, a soft box. The bracket that's going to hold the flash very simply screws onto it. It is adjustable. And I get this off this bracket. Take this guy right off.
Does the bracket come with a bracket box?
I'm sorry?
The bracket comes with a rapid
Yes.
box?
All this that you're seeing right now comes with a rapid box, which is the carry case, the bracket, and the front diffusion panel. Now, probably the best thing about the rapid box that I love the most is, number one, it sets up very, very quickly. Very easy to set up. It's fully adjustable so that I can put any flash on it. And all I'm doing now is I'm attaching the flash to the shoe, making sure that it's nice and tight. And it is. Here's my adjustment. I want it just entering the box. Now I'm going to bring the box up just a teeny bit. Just like that. Now, what I told you a little while ago was that the size of the light will make it softer. And this certainly and absolutely makes a portable electronic flash bigger. But this is not really big. It's medium big. This is 26 inches. And we keep it 26 inches because all of our customers are asking for portability. So we're giving it to them. But we also know that a lot of photographers like to use a beauty dish. I think you've all heard of a beauty dish. A beauty dish is a particular kind of light modifier. It's usually round, it's usually rigid metal. It has a metal plate that is right in front of where the studio strobe is. Usually it's a studio strobe. The light hits that, it bounces back and fills up nice, and it gives you beautiful light. It's used in fashion photography quite a bit. Well, it's okay. We have other light modifiers, but we can't put a beauty dish on it. It's not easy to. Well, this design enables us to do it. All we did is put a screw hole in the middle, and we've got a plate, a deflector plate. This deflector plate sells for 20 bucks. The box by way sells for $169. And it's reversible, although we're finding that this direction is the best. Got a little screw hole on it. All I do is screw it in. Now what this does is it really blocks the harshest part of the light. And I just get it in right. I don't want it falling apart. And I add diffusion also. So what's going to happen now is you can see, I'll bring it back so everybody can see, just by looking at the light is not coming directly out and hitting diffusion. It's hitting the metal, which is forcing the light backwards, and there's a lot of room in there, which is going to fill up the box and fill up the diffusion panel. The diffusion panel is going to cut off, maybe about a stop. And that just simply goes on the outside like this. I'm going to put it in approximately the same position. I'm going to do a straight portrait here, so since I've got this deflector plate and diffusion on there, I want to put the light pretty close to the subject. As I'm trying to shoot about this much of Ricky. This is going to be a formal portrait, a portrait. If I wanted to shoot more, I'd bring it further back. But this, when you look at the geometry of it, the light's going to come down and hit right about where her wrist is, and above it's going to go well above her head. I like to have the center light a little bit above the level of your eyes. I don't want it too high, because then you start getting raccoon eyes, you start getting too long of a shadow below the nose. I like to keep approximately this angle. I like to feather the light a little bit. When I say feather the light, I mean I am not pointing it directly at her face. I'm pointing it about here. So it's feathering a little bit. I'm going to add a reflector in a moment. I want you to see this built up, one thing at a time. I have to guess my position because I can't see the light. That should be right. I'm going to set the power back down to 1/16. I'm going to go to 1/16 because I've done it before and it's worked out pretty well in 1/16 at 5.6 at 200 ISO. Let's see how it works here. Change my aperture to 5.6. I'm at 200. I'm ready to go, just like that. Let's see what it looks like. A little underexposed, a teeny bit. Now in this case, I'm going to break one of my rolls, and I'm going to move the position of the light a little bit. I don't like that position. I want to bring it a little bit closer. Nice and close. Okay, let's try that now. Come on, you can do it.
It
Is that it?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, sometimes I can't tell. It's pretty darn close. I'm going to open up a little bit more. Let's try F5. Our exposure is pretty good. Now, the shadow on the one side of her nose and on her right cheek, the left side of the picture, well, that's to be expected because the light of where it's at. And the best way to fix that is not with another light on that side, but a reflector. Really simple. I love using reflectors because they are so easy to use. They're very cost effective. There's a kit. Happens to be our 30-inch 4-in-1 kit. 4-in-1 kit is great because it comes with a diffusion panel, which is wonderful to use outdoors, or even in this situation, you can actually shoot through it. And it's got a reflector, which is at a 30-inch silver side, and it's got what we call a sunlight side. A sunlight gives a weave of gold and silver, adds a little bit of color. This is a personal preference thing. I very rarely use the sunlight. Maybe if I have someone who's very, very pale, I may want to add some color. Or if I'm shooting a picture outdoors, I want to add a little bit of a warm look. You know, Ricky I've shot plenty of times, and she always looks great with silver. So I am going to position the reflector right about here, pick up the light from the main light. Now I can certainly ask one of you guys to hold. I'm not going to. And I'm going to tell you why. I have teenage daughters. And from time to time they assist me and they hold the reflector. How long do you think a 16-year-old girl will hold a reflector before I start hearing about it? I think the record was 30 seconds. So this is not the reason we invented this, but it's a great tool, illuminator arm. Seriously, I don't like people to hold reflectors for me, mainly because we hold it and you droop a little bit. All of a sudden you start moving. And I'm doing a setup like this. This is going to be pretty tight. This is tight. And a slight movement will change the effect. So I'd rather have the reflector on an arm and a light stand that I can control. But I'll tell you, these illuminator arms are great. They never complain. You buy it once. You don't have to put it through college. Okay, so what I'm doing now with the reflector is I'm guessing the position. And like you guys can probably see, I've got the light really hitting the reflector. I think I'll put a little bit higher. Right about there. Now let's test this. This is where continuous light is a lot easier to use than flash, especially portable electronic flash. Because this is all guesswork. Let's try that. No other changes. Big difference. A really big difference. You know, I still have a shadow on that side. Guys, I kind of like it. I kind of like it, just like that. Now I can move this a little bit more, maybe a little bit closer and pick up the light, but we've got a great portrait here. The only thing wrong with this right now is the pose. The pose is okay, but her shoulders are perpendicular or parallel to me. That's what we call a mugshot mode. You know mugshots. Either turn that way or that way. Let's turn towards the light. Yeah, that's it. And your head this way. Yeah, that's it. Oh, that's a great pose by Ricky. You look great like that. Fantastic. Not a bad portrait. Now, the great thing about this and shooting in manual is once I have all of this set up, as long as the lights don't change in relation to my subject, I can shoot back here and she is going to be perfectly exposed. Okay? That's all that matters. Now, if I was in ETTL mode and I'm really close and I come way back here, I'm going to get two different images. So now let's make this image even better. Because so I put up on the screen a regular portrait, like that. I'm going to cut your head off a little bit on that one. I don't like that. There's one thing lacking in this picture. I'm losing detail in her hair. See that? So here's where my second light comes in. Yeah, ostensibly this is my second light. It's a reflector. But an actual second light, I'm going to set up as a rim light. A rim light is a very important light. I would say that is the most important light that we can possibly use in portraiture, taking still lifes, just about anything. I don't really care what it is. Macro work, flowers, industrial equipment. It really doesn't matter. For all intents and purposes, all photography is taking a 3D subject and reproducing it on a 2D medium. And we try and give it depth. And the way we give depth to any photograph is by the use of shadow and highlight. Shadow and highlight. I am not a flat lighting person. I don't like flat lighting. Flat lighting is when you have the same amount of light over here as you do over here. There's no depth there. We see flat lighting quite a bit in fashion photography, and the reason they use flat lighting in fashion photography, especially makeup photography, is that they have these $10,000 a day models that have perfect faces, and their skin is unblemished, and they still Photoshop it. Now, we've got a fine looking group here, but unless I'm missing something, I don't see any supermodels here. Okay, we all look kind of normal. Well, yeah, you're saying, look at you. I can take a picture of you too, dude. You look great. And the whole point is that I can shape someone's face with shadow, and I can give it depth and highlight the stuff that I want to. Just by having that shadow on this side of Ricky's face, right over here, she doesn't really need it, but I slimmed her face down even more. It's a really nice look. That little bit of shadow next to her nose and right over there makes her nose look a teeny bit smaller. Yeah, I've got some highlight here, and certainly got a nice catch light in her eye. This is a beautiful portrait, but her hair's gone. There's just nothing there. So let's set up a second light. Again, showing you from scratch how I do it. I have another rapid box with me, which is a strip. A strip is different than the octa, and so it is shaped like a strip. (10 by 24). Great shape to do any kind of hair light from directly above, rim light, background light, anywhere where you want to shape the light and limit its throw is really what it is. The round one, I wanted to go and cover a relatively large area. The rim light, I don't, so that's why I use a strip. So, let's set up the bracket. I put it here somewhere, didn't I? There it is. Run on the light stand first. Now I could use a deflector plate on this one. I choose not to, typically because it doesn't, you don't need it. I want to have some light coming out of this, but I'm going to turn down the power quite a bit. Typically, whatever power my main light is at, I do this one about half that power. So right now I'm at 1/16 power on my main light. I'm going to put this one down to 1/32. Oh, I'm sorry, am I at 16th? Take a look. Am I at 16th?
Yeah.
So if I'm at 1/16, I'm going to set this one at 1/132nd, or 1/32nd power. The positioning of this is relatively critical. You don't want it too far into the box. I want it right at the edge. I want it relatively close to the middle. That'll work. A touch higher. There we go. Now we have had some people comment and question, hey, I've got this big chunk of metal right in front of my light. Isn't that cutting down the light quite a bit? Well, no, not really. We tested it just to be sure. your portable electronic flash is so powerful, it just goes right around that metal right in front of it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't really shape the light at all. It doesn't do much to it at all. But just to be sure, we took a rapid box and we destroyed it. We took out the spines. We, rigged it so it would keep its shape. So we put a flash in it without any of this metal in there, and we took the exact same picture with it, and we found, I think the exposure difference was 1/10 of an f-stop, to be very, very exact, but the look wasn't different at all. So this one, I just put the diffusion panel on. Pocket Wizard. I'm at 30-second power. I am on. First thing I'm going to do is test it. It's working. This is quite simple. The opposite side of my subject, or my main light, I'm sorry, opposite side of my main light. Now, I'm not a big hair light person, a true hair light. I don't know if it's because I'm bald or I don't know. But I think it's more to do with ease of use. A true hair light is a light that comes from directly above. And you really should use a boom arm. With this setup, you don't have to have a really heavy duty one, but I find that this gives me just the effect I want because I can put it up and put it on the side and I can light up just what I want, which is a little bit of her shoulder, a teeny bit on this side of the face, and mainly her hair. I want to be careful. I don't really want to hit her face that much, so let's see what this looks like. This is going to be a little bit of trial and error. But I'll bet you that we hit it pretty good the first time up. Okay? One shot. Let's see what it does. That's not enough. All right, there. Let's try that. The power might be a little bit too low. We shall see. I'm getting a little bit, she's got such dark hair. You got to remember, folks, keep this in mind always. Light colors reflect light, dark colors absorb light. I just did this setup a few days ago with someone that had, it was actually an older gentleman, he had whitish hair. And so 1/32 of power was great. But she's got this dark hair. You don't color your hair, right, Ricky? That's natural. What I'm going to do is I'm going to up this power to a 16th from a 32nd, and we're going to start seeing some differences in the detail we're getting on her hair. There we go. A little bit more. She's really absorbing that light quite a bit. So I'm going to go to an 1/8 power. It's going to be a spot that's going to work perfectly for us. This, I have a feeling, is going to be it. Yeah. I mean, now I'm in a fine line here now, because I see a difference looking on her neck now and her ear. It's a little bit too much, so I'm going to pull it back a teeny bit. And with the 580 EX2s, I have an ability to go an 1/8 minus 0.3. I'm going to go an 1/8 minus 0.7. This is a kind of precise control that's available to us with portable electronic flashes. Now we're ready to rock and roll. So at this point, I'm in manual control. Everything's manual. Everything's set up. Now I can work with Ricky and get a good look out of it. Now we're going to take some portraits. Turn your knees where that's right, and your head a little bit more towards me. That's great. Tilt a little bit to your left. Oh, that's great. That's beautiful. You can see I can shoot relatively quickly because I'm on quick recharge time. Your head a little bit more towards me. There you go. Nice. I can just shoot away. And everyone, see when her turns her head that way, I'm picking up a little more rim light there. I think that's okay. You know, these are the kind of things that I can play with. The highlights coming on the side is where we do a lot of differences depending on your subject. Typically, when we have highlights on the side of the face, like that, we're trying to show some definition. We're trying to show some, I'm not sure if the rigidity is the right word, it's really a definition. Now Ricky's got an angular face, so I like to use that on her. I may not on other people. It depends. A lot of times when we're shooting young males that have muscles, you've seen these pictures where their pose is like this, an athlete, okay? He's ripping muscles. And a lot of times they're bald. That's the style now. Young guy, bald, ripping muscles. You have light on them, but you'll notice there's all this rim light coming from both sides to show up that definition. So a lot of it depends on the subject that you're shooting with. And unfortunately, this is a reality too when we come to men and women. When men get older, they get wrinkles in their skin, a little character in their face, right? Especially when they get even a little bit older than what I am and we start losing weight. You know, first we gain weight, then we start losing it. And so you get some lines in your face, you get a little gray, sometimes more than others. And typically in our society, that is a sign of experience. He looks distinguished, right? With a woman, when they get older and they get some wrinkles and their skin sags a little bit, it's just a sign that they're getting older. And our society has put these limitations on what is considered attractive in a woman as they get older. It's kind of insidious. I don't like it, but unfortunately, that's what I kind of got to go with sometimes. So if I shoot an older woman, I'm not going to have that kind of rim light on it. I'm going to have a much subtler rim light. The main light, actually this lighting is pretty good for a lot of people in the front. It's the rim light that's a little bit, bringing out a teeny bit more. But you always want to have as soft a light as you can when someone gets a little bit older. So we change that a little bit depending on who your subject is, really, is what we're talking about. Here, I'm just going to show you what I was talking about with opening up the shutter speed to give us the background. Okay. Can we turn off lights? Or no? You need them.
Yeah,
Well, let's see what happens, okay?
It messes with the color balance of the video.
And it affects the color balance. Okay, well, let's see. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot towards the darker area behind us. Nothing spectacular here. Just a straight picture. I'm going to go a little bit wider. Let's see what we come up with just setting the camera the way it's set. This is going to work. Notice the background? I'm going to go on my shutter speed to 1/100th of a second. I'm going to go a little bit wider so you can see it. In fact, I'm going to go back to 1/25th and go wide. You can see how dark the background is. See that? Mainly because 1/125th of a second at f5, 200 ISO is not enough light for back there. I'm going to go to 1/100th of a second. And I'm going to go to 1/60th of a second. Starting to come out, isn't it? I'm going to go to 1/30th of a second. I'm going to go to a 1/15 of a second. You get the point here. As I go to a slower and slower shutter speed, the exposure on her is identical. Now I can see you in the background pretty clearly. So this is an illustration of the shutter speed controlling exposure for ambient light, aperture controlling the exposure coming out of the flash. And this is a perfect illustration of it. Now, the other thing we're seeing on this, and yeah, you guys are looking all right. Your eyes are closed over there. Come on, you gotta wait, stay away. The other thing we're seeing here, this is an interesting phenomena, is the difference in color. You notice that? It's showing us that the strobe is putting out X amount of color temperature, and then the background is not the same. It's not being lit by the flash anymore. That flash is falling off right about over here. There's nothing going on. So that's why we've got a color imbalance too, where if I really wanted to make that look completely natural, what I would do is I would throw a flash on you guys, like that. I'm not going to do anything spectacular here again. We're going to see a difference again. We should. This thing fire?
Did you set a color balance in your camera when you?
My color, the white balance that I set is an excellent question. Did that fire?
Yes.
Yeah, it should light it up. Yeah, so I got to even set more power. It's just being eaten up. The white balance setting that I did, and I like to use when I'm using an electronic flash, is the flash preset. And the reason I like to use flash preset is that we find the electronic flash is pretty consistent with its color. It's pretty good. There we go. We're getting a little bit of light on you guys. You can really play around like this forever. You get the idea. But white balance is a lot more difficult to determine in continuous light, and unless you're in a studio setting. In a studio setting, I like to use custom light, white balance quite a bit. And a lot of that just comes from the light source that I'm using and so on. With electronic flash, all the light's coming from this flash. And I know from experience that these Canon flashes that I own are pretty accurate, and especially used with a Canon camera in flash preset, they match pretty darn close. Now, in that instance where I just gave the example, and you are doing that picture that you've got a subject over here and you're trying to capture the sunset or a colorful sky, don't worry about the color back there. Who cares? It should look colorful. It should be warm. But let's say you are concerned about it. Let's say in this particular instance, we're in a position where that little bit of yellow in the background is not something that we desire. One of the easiest ways to correct that is you put a little gel on your flash. There are companies, I'm sure here at B&H, that they sell little gels that you can just put on your flash head, and you can have affect the color hitting her to try and balance it to the warm behind. Anything else? I'm going to show you one more image that I shot this weekend to show you it's not just pretty girls that look good. There's a picture that I shot with pretty much the same setup this past weekend, and there was a guy there. I didn't have a model, and there was a gentleman there that was helping with the equipment. This is for a big camera club consortium. And I took one look at him and I said, dude, you're going to be my model. Look at this guy. It's like I had Ernest Hemingway there, right? Now, when you look at this photograph, though, I used almost the same setup. You can tell his hair's a little bit lighter. I get a little bit of nice rim light on his hair, but the wrinkles, I'm kind of emphasizing them to a certain extent. So you can, the really point I'm trying to make here is that portable electronic flash can be configured and used in many different ways, and you will make it look different depending on what kind of light modifier you put on it. I have found that this particular setup with the rapid box and the deflector plate and the diffusion panel gives some of the softest light that there is. If you want to increase the harshness, quote unquote harshness of it, you take out the deflector plate. We got some people that take off the diffusion panel and use a deflector plate. We have different light modifiers that you can use. We've got Apollos that are more like a fold-up umbrella, and there's different ways you can use diffusion and so on. If you want to do something very simple, you can take the diffusion panel on a collapsible reflector set and shoot the flash through that. There's a lot of different ways. What I'm telling you is experiment a little bit. It's relatively easy to do. If you're trying to take straight portraits and you want to do them quickly and easily, I can only show you what I think works. And again, I'm not a big portable electronic flash lover, and this light modifier has turned me into a lover of this type of light again. So I'm using it more and more because it's so easy. So thank you all for coming. If you got any more questions, you can ask me a couple questions while I'm tearing down. I hope you got something good out of this.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.